Jay, why do you believe or why do you think that strong relationships are so critical for success in the AEC industry? Because we know they are.
Every strong relationship, there's trust, right? And with trust, there is both truth and dependability. And every strong relationship, there's a friendship. And with that friendship, there is just a commitment to support one another. Well, every project will have its challenges, from technical design challenges to coordination to deadlines, budgets, and there's always
In the architecture, engineering, and construction world, strong partnerships aren't just helpful, they're essential. Trusted relationships drive better collaboration, smarter decisions, and ultimately more successful projects. In today's episode, I'll be speaking with Jay Guerra. Jay is a licensed professional engineer, president of Gibbens Drake Scott. He's going to talk about how trust-based relationships can transform team dynamics and elevate your project outcomes, from early coordination to long-term impact. I'm Anthony Fasano, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump in. All right, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Jay Guerra is the president of Gibbens Drake Scott. He is a licensed professional engineer, and we're thrilled to have him here with us on the AEC Project Management Podcast. Jay, welcome.
Thank you. Thankful to be there.
All right, so Jay, maybe you can start off by just telling our audience a little bit about yourself, kind of your career journey, and kind of what led you to your current role as president, because I think a lot of us as engineers, we start doing calculations, we don't think about becoming a president. So take us through your career journey.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. That really wasn't on my plate to begin with. But I met Tom Gibbens back in 1996. I'd been working for 10 years for a couple of other engineering firms, and I was just looking for my next opportunity. And then I found Tom. He was a man of true character and a man that I knew I wanted to emulate. So I joined Gibbens Engineering. And then in 98, we started the Sprint Campus World Headquarters Project. It's here in Overland Park, Kansas. It's a 4 million square foot facility, 20 buildings. It was huge, one of the biggest at the time. And in 2000, I was asked to be the project engineering coordinator. It was huge, incredible opportunity. And that really shaped who I am as an engineer and how I approach all projects today. So it wasn't until 2006 that they asked me to become principal of and then Gibbens Drake Scott.
That's great. And that just goes to show you in your career as an engineer, it's kind of that one opportunity or that one project that can really,
Right.
Just open up doors, if you will.
And you never know which one that is.
Right. They come in all shapes and sizes. That's true.
Correct.
So, Jay, why do you believe or why do you think that strong relationships are so critical for success in the AEC industry? Because we know they are.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I guess in every strong relationship, there's trust, right? And with trust, there is both truth and dependability. And every strong relationship, there's a friendship. And with that friendship, there is just a commitment to support one another. Well, every project will have its challenges, from technical design challenges to coordination to deadlines, budgets, and there's always a tension and the pressure that comes with every challenge. But with strong, trusted friends, you work through those challenges together. And successful relationships is really what makes successful projects.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we're constantly communicating with people, working with people, internal and external to our organization in engineering. And so, building up those skill sets is critically important. Now, Jay, when we work on the types of projects that you work on, there's a lot of different parties that are involved. And oftentimes you have sub-consultants, you work with other partners. Can you talk a little bit about how working with other local firms or consultants can really have an impact on your project efficiency and some of the things you can do with your project delivery?
Oh, sure. I mean, first, we're in 2025, right? So global communication is common every day. I mean, we're registered in 46 states and in DC. So we have successful project teams or relationships around the country. However, many of those started here in Kansas City. I mean, we're spoiled here in Kansas City. We have so many AEC partners. So we collectively formed what's called KC Global Design. It's where 1,200 firms collaborate socially and professionally with one another. We partner for the good of the community and their industry. We've got different initiatives. Boot camps have been developed, and we enjoy coffee, lunch, and drinks. We just grow in relationship together with colleagues and clients and competitors even, because even competitors become clients at some point in time, especially at this day and age. So good relationships. I mean, really good relationships and project teams. I mean, who doesn't want to work with their friends, right?
Right.
And so developing those are always, well, they're not very efficient at times, nor very innovative, but the outcomes are so rewarding, both professionally and personally. Again, just grateful we have a location in Kansas City to have that strong collaboration among the other firms.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think kind of what Jay said there is really important about, enjoying your career on a day-to-day basis. And certainly as an engineer, you may enjoy the project work you're doing, but I think
Right.
also, getting involved, I know for me in my career, getting involved with some of the local societies and organizations,
Absolutely.
right, allows me to meet other people, connect with them, and then just have those relationships in the industry so that if you do need something or you have a question, you call up a friend. They don't have to work with you necessarily, but they're still
Right.
going to guide you and mentor you and give you some feedback. So
Absolutely.
it really can transform your career. So, Jay, can you talk a little bit about maybe a recent project where strategic partnerships were kind of key to the success of the project and how those partnerships were developed?
Yeah. Trying to think of one that's not actually. But I guess a couple come to mind. One is called an East Campus project. It's also known as KC Next. It's across the street from the Kansas City National Security Campus here in South Kansas City. And that's where the National Nuclear Security Administration is tasked to develop non-nuclear components for nuclear weapons. Okay, can't say much more than that. Don't know much more than that, really. But we were the engineer on the original campus, 300,000 square foot office building, just a portion of it, and the data center. And those relationships led to this project currently, the East Campus. But before that, there was the IRS Service Center. And before that, as I said, the Sprint Campus World Headquarters project. So, moving forward again from, let's say, the Sprint campus, we had a lot of long relationship with Sprint. So Sprint Ion and Sprint E-Solutions, that grew our data center experience around the country back in 2000. And that led to hundreds of data center projects in between. So one project begat another, and then another to KC Next, and then to the AI data centers of today. And who would have known that all would have started just from that one core relationship, just from there.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it is, again, we this is kind of a running theme of our conversation so far, which is relationships at the end of the day. That's everything we do in engineering. That's everything we do on these types of projects, which makes it so important. So that being said, when you think about these different partners that you end up working with on these projects, do you consider like how they align with some of your company's goals and your values when you're kind of selecting these partners? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. We we also like the design build market, and we've had some really good design build partners and some others. So we learned quickly that you've really got to align on a lot of values. Now, we don't have a hard fast formula. I mean, first, obviously, you got to begin with the skills of the project. Are we capable? Are they capable of the project at hand?
Sure.
Do we align in the different project types and the sectors and blah, blah, blah? I mean, we look for common ground, but it must include the same values. I mean, no one, well, few perhaps, are going to say that I only want to get rich, right?
Right.
Or I'm only in it for the fame. And no judgment if they are, right? But that's just not our main objective. I mean, we need compensation for our work, right? And we want to make a name for ourselves so that people will remember us and call us back again. But that's really not the main goal. They are simply byproducts of living from our values. And I'm confident that there are many design partners who feel the same way, and we just want to partner with those.
Yeah, and it's a good example, but it is something that's important. I mean, at EMI, we do a lot of leadership and project management training, and we hire instructors, like freelance instructors, and we want them to have a pretty good alignment with our values at EMI, right? And if they don't, then maybe we're not going to hire them or continue to use them because it's not going to reflect well when they're out there representing us in our programs and
True.
things of that nature. So it's very similar. So,
Absolutely.
Jay, when you're collaborating with different partners across different disciplines, like you're coordinating MEP and technology designs with architects or owners or construction managers. Talk a little
Mhm.
bit about how you approach that, because you're kind of somewhat speaking different languages, but kind of coming together for a project.
No question. I mean, learning to navigate the communication tools, I mean, that's critical, right? I mean, what do I choose? Do I email? Do I text? Some do Slack. Do I message on Teams, Meet at Zoom, Google Meet? I mean, there are so many. And then in construction, obviously there's SharePoint or ACC and then platforms like Procore and other. Okay, so the point is, how do I choose the right platform? As a consultant today, like you said, it's like a language. We must learn and become fluent in all those various platforms available for project team. Now, we have our own internal platforms and tools, and we must always grow in communication with our own language, right? And how to communicate with our own people. But we've got to learn the language of our clients and colleagues. So we can't get stuck in just the old ways that we did things. We got to grow. We got to evolve. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question, just learn the language of your project teams.
Hmm. I'm curious if you would have any advice for kind of up and coming engineers or project managers that are trying to improve their communication skills. I think as younger professionals, I know you're constantly going to hear, if you want to be an engineering leader, if you want to be a great project manager, you got to be a great communicator. But I find that people don't often tell you how, they just tell you that you have to.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, just based on your own personal experience in terms of communication skills and speaking, if, what can you recommend to those that maybe aren't that comfortable with that?
Well, some advice that I got is that learn your elevator speech, if you will. Have your 30-second speech on who you are and your minute speech and maybe 5-minute speech on who you are as a company or firm. And that was helpful. And then practice that just so you get the language down and you understand it better. But I think most importantly, at least for me, I got to speak from my core and what I really believe. And I'm not really a good sales guy. I don't like sales guys, if you will. No offense to sales guys out there. But if they've always got an agenda to try to sell me something, versus just focusing on a relationship, getting to know who they are, what they do, and sharing a little bit about who I am. And so speaking out of your core of who you are really makes the conversation so much easier. I don't have to remember what I said to the one guy or the other. I'm just speaking from the heart, if you will. But also the practical tools, uh, any type of public speaking engagements. I mean, begin small. I mean, start with your family, right? Your wife or your kids. But yeah, for like you were saying, the other agencies or groups, communities, trade organizations,
Right.
yeah, volunteer to speak for them. I mean, it's frightening. It scares you to death to get in front of a crowd of people who are listening to you as if you're the expert. But it does help you gain confidence that this is okay.
Yeah. And I think to Jay's point, start small. I tell people this all the time. If you have young children, maybe you coach one of their teams and you're standing up in
Absolutely.
front of their team and you're talking. I mean, you're still standing up in front of people and you need to communicate, right? If you
Right.
maybe you can volunteer at your church, maybe there's different outlets in your community where you can get up
Absolutely.
there and speak, because every time you speak, you're going to build up a little bit of confidence, right? And then it gets just a little bit easier next time until you feel a
Correct.
little bit more comfortable. Of
Yeah,
course.
accept critique as well. Don't
Yeah.
don't
No, and
don't.
ask for it. Ask for feedback, right? And I think that's a really important thing. In fact, when I started doing public speaking, I joined the local Toastmasters group, which is a great organization. And one of the things that you do is you'll give your speech, and then everyone and a few people in the audience are selected to write down and give you that written feedback. And if you want to get better at anything in life, you got to get the feedback. You got to study that feedback, and then you got to try to make some improvements. And so, I think just ultimately to Jay's point is practice, right? Do it. You're not going to get better at public speaking by reading books about it. That I can
Yeah,
assure you, right? Because there's nothing like getting
absolutely.
up in front of the room and doing it. So,
Right. And pick something you are passionate about too to make it easier on yourself. That's something I really believe in.
yeah, for sure. That can definitely make it easier as you're building your confidence. All right. So, the final question that I want to ask you, Jay, is our PM pitfalls question, which is based on the projects that you've worked on. What would you say is one of the bigger pitfalls that you often see project managers kind of fall into on engineering type projects? And how would you recommend that they could even either avoid it or overcome it or minimize the challenges around it from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, we all face the pressure of time and budget, right? There's never enough time and never enough budget, so that's a given. But probably one of the pitfalls, I mean, I think for engineers especially, is waiting until I have all the information before I begin. I don't know. I don't have the information, especially hard for engineers. But we've got to acknowledge at the beginning that we're not going to get all the information wanted to complete a project. I mean, anyone can design a project with all the information, right? And many times the client won't even know what information is required. Well, that's why they call upon GDS, right? Because we can do it with no information. No, no. But we have to learn and lean upon our past experiences and knowledge of a project. I mean, we know the direction that we need to go for most all projects, and our knowledge of the client and who they are and what they're really after to help them make the decisions that they need in their best interest. Because there's always a pressure, right? And that's probably the thing that you feel, that I've got to give the right answer. I've always got to be right, and I don't want to be wrong. That's probably a more better descriptor for it. I can't be wrong. Well, this can lead to a couple of tendencies. One, not making any decisions at all, right? Until you're 100% sure. Well, that's not going to help with time or budget. And the other is to give the answer that you think they want to hear versus the truth as you see it. Yeah, so much pressure on people, everybody, to prove something to others. No, no, no. You don't have to prove that you have all the answers, that you know everything, that you can meet any deadline, because everyone really knows that's not true. So, um, so instead of feeling the pressure to meet all expectations and say the things in the moment that you can't produce, whether it's a deadline or fitting that duct above the ceiling or making all of your dreams come true, just be real. Be real about it. Experience the disappointment that you're going to get and experience it together, process it, but give them a solution. Okay, that's not going to work, but perhaps if we do this, we can make that happen. So that helps. But also, at the end of the day, you got to be true to your word. I mean, even if to your own hurt. And that is the key, to not overcommit or promise something that you can't deliver. But like any friendship, just be true to your word. That's probably the gist of it.
Yeah, and I think Jay really makes a really good point there, which is kind of capturing this whole idea. The way I think of it is, as a project manager, kind of knowing when you have enough or what's good enough and
Right.
what's not. Because like Jay's saying, there may be a point in time where you have enough information to take the project at least through this first phase, and then you could get the rest of the information when you get there, as opposed to waiting and then compromising your schedule or compromising your budget or whatever the case may be, which is obviously not easy, because as engineers we're looking for all the information and all the data as much as we can get it. But I think that's kind of the difference between being a technical professional and a project manager, and you have to kind of
True.
graduate and start to wrap your head around some of those things that you're going to need to balance if you want to deliver your project successfully.
Yeah, and as a project manager, especially a project manager, you don't have to have all the answers. Rely upon your team. Rely upon your team to give you that content, and then be able to communicate to the client. Okay, I don't have this, or this, but we're moving forward, and I'm moving forward with this, and this, because this is the assumption that we think is best for you, and then talk through that with them, and get some buy-in, if you will. But that way you can proceed forward, advising the client with what you're doing and what you know. And then together you can take responsibility of whatever happens.
Yeah, and I think that's also a really good point, because as an engineer, maybe a younger out of school engineer who's doing calculations, it's you yourself doing the calculations. Whereas at the project management level, you're not relying on yourself for all the information, right? You
Correct.
you have this team of people that you can
Correct.
lean on, that you just have to get used to that, and lean on and tap into those resources whenever you can to make sure that you're kind of making the best decision. So those are some
Absolutely. And
challenging
give
things.
credit where credit is due. I mean, yeah, I may be the PM, especially when I was the coordinator for the Sprint Campus project. I mean, I was the only face that they saw, but the information I was giving them was from the whole team of people. And it's easy to get heady to think that, hey, I'm the man. Nah, It is the people that feeding the information. They're the ones that really deserve the accolades for what they're doing. I'm just a communicator. I'm just a facilitator of that.
All right. Well, Jay Guerra, licensed professional engineer, president of Gibbens Drake Scott. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the AEC Project Management Podcast.
Thank you. Grateful to be here.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jay. It's so nice to have a technical professional who is now at the highest level of the company just talk about their career progression and also talk about relationships in our projects because they are so important. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe to our channel here. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help technical professionals become better project managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.